3 days before her dream wedding, Lily Thompson finds herself holding a note that shatters her entire world. "Wedding's off. Expect a call from my lawyer." Her parents, the ones who promised to support her, have betrayed her in the most heartless way possible. With no way to get them back on her side, she faces a choice: follow her family's demands or follow her heart. But the truth is, the next 48 hours will change everything. And Lily's about to find out what it really means to be free. Lily Thompson sat frozen, her hands trembling as she held the letter from her parents. The elegant stationery, with its carefully embossed crest, seemed to mock her in that moment. "Wedding's off. Expect a call from my lawyer." The words on the page blurred as the flood of emotions overwhelmed her. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment she couldn't even make sense of the words. The life she had been building with Adam, the future they had dreamed of together, was suddenly ripped away in an instant. How had it come to this? Her mind raced, trying to comprehend what had just happened. Her parents had always been controlling, but this was a betrayal of the highest order. They had always planned her life for her, where she would go to school, who she would marry, the way she would live. Her entire life had been a carefully orchestrated dance, one that had kept her in their grip, even as she longed for freedom. She had tried so hard to please them, to meet their impossible standards. But now, in the cold, silent aftermath of their note, Lily realised how little they had ever cared about what she truly wanted. The storm inside her heart churned as she thought back to the years of pressure. Growing up in the Thompson household had been a constant battle for approval. Her father, Victor, had run one of the most successful investment firms on the East Coast, and her mother, Diane, had maintained the social calendar for Boston's elite. From a young age, Lily had known her future was mapped out for her. The Ivy League education, the prestigious career, the picture-perfect marriage to a man of their choosing, everything was decided before she had even spoken a word. It wasn't that Lily hadn't enjoyed the privileges that came with her family's wealth. It wasn't even that she had resented their expectations at first. But as she grew older, the suffocating grip of their control began to feel unbearable. Every decision she made was scrutinized. Every move was met with an opinion or a directive. By the time she graduated from Brown University, Lily had already been told what her future would look like: working in finance, managing investments for the family firm, living in a pristine mansion, marrying someone from the right circles. But Lily had resisted. She didn't want the life they had mapped out for her. Instead of pursuing a career in business or law, she chose a path that had long been dismissed by her parents as a temporary distraction. She had fallen in love with interior design. She had started working at a small studio in Boston, and over time she had built up an impressive client list. Her parents had reluctantly accepted her career choice when they saw she was successful, but it was always clear that they thought it was just a phase. The real plan in their eyes was for her to marry well and settle into a life that reflected their status. Enter Adam Green. Adam wasn't the kind of man her parents had ever imagined for her. He wasn't from a wealthy family. He wasn't a banker or a lawyer. He wasn't even someone who had been trained to fit the mold of high society. He was a middle school art teacher with a passion for helping kids, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds. He'd grown up in a modest home in Western Massachusetts, worked his way through college on scholarships, and built a career based on his love for teaching and creativity. There was nothing pretentious about Adam, nothing that fit the world Lily had grown up in. But that was precisely why she loved him. Lily had met Adam 2 years ago at a charity fundraiser for arts education in public schools. She had been there as a donor, and Adam had been there to receive an award for his innovative program that connected students with professional artists. As he stood on stage accepting his award, Lily was captivated. He spoke with such sincerity, such passion for the work he did, and Lily felt something stir inside her that she hadn't felt in a long time. This wasn't the kind of man she had been told to fall for, but she couldn't deny the pull between them. Their first date had been unlike any other. No fancy restaurants or upscale venues, but instead an interactive art exhibit created by his students. Afterward, they had dinner at a small, family-owned restaurant where the owners knew Adam by name. It felt effortless, comfortable, like they were just two people, not two people trying to meet a set of expectations. Lily had never felt so free, so true to herself, and Adam made her feel more alive than anyone ever had. But when Lily introduced Adam to her parents, it was clear that he didn't fit the mould they had so carefully crafted for her. Her mother, Diane, had been polite, but there was a coldness in her eyes. Her father, Victor, had barely spoken to Adam, his approval written in the subtle arch of his brow. Adam was everything they didn't want for their daughter, and it didn't take long for Lily to realise that despite her love for him, they would never accept him. Lily had hoped, foolishly, that if she gave in to their demands, if she compromised on the wedding plans, chose the right dress, invited the right people, her parents would eventually come around. But now, holding the letter in her hand, she realised how wrong she had been. No matter how much she tried to please them, no matter how much she gave up for their approval, she was still just a pawn in their game. And now they had taken everything from her. Lily's heart ached as she thought of Adam, the man who had brought light into her life when everything around her had seemed so dim. She couldn't recall the first time she saw him without feeling a sense of warmth rush through her. It had been at that art fundraiser, one of those high-profile charity events where she was expected to be present as a donor. Adam, in contrast, had been there to receive an award for his innovative program connecting students with artists. As he took the stage, his speech was simple yet so genuine, and for the first time in a long while Lily felt her heart stir. He didn't belong in the world she had grown up in, and that was exactly what drew her to him. Adam wasn't like the men her parents had envisioned for her. He wasn't tall, wealthy, or polished in the same way. His clothes weren't designer, his accent wasn't refined, and he didn't have a pedigree that could impress her mother's country club friends. But there was something about him, something in the way he spoke about the kids he worked with, his passion for teaching, and the way he never tried to be anyone other than himself. That was the magic that pulled her in. When their first conversation stretched into hours, Lily realised she hadn't felt this comfortable in years. With Adam she could drop all pretense, she could just be herself. There were no expectations, no masks to wear. The simple date they had afterward, visiting an art exhibit created by his students, followed by a small meal in a local restaurant where the owners knew him by name, wasn't glamorous, but it was perfect. There was no need to impress anyone. For the first time, Lily didn't feel like she had to measure up to the standards set by her family. Adam wasn't the polished figure her parents expected for their only daughter, but Lily had stopped caring about that. In the early months of their relationship, she had hoped that time would win them over. She thought maybe if they spent enough time together, her parents would see what she saw in him. But as the weeks went by, it became clear that Adam was not just a mismatch in their eyes, he was a threat. He was everything that went against the expectations her parents had for her life, and they were determined to make it clear that he wasn't acceptable. Their disapproval was never overt, at least not in the beginning. At first it was just subtle hints, a stiff handshake from her father, a polite but chilly smile from her mother. When Adam came over for dinner, Lily could feel the tension in the room, the strained silence that came every time he said something they deemed unsuitable. Her mother would raise an eyebrow, her lips pressed tightly together, as though she were trying not to reveal her distaste for the simple, honest way Adam spoke. Her father would comment on something trivial, like his lack of a graduate degree or the fact that Adam had come from a working-class background. A fine young man, her father had said once, though the tone left no room for warmth. But one must wonder how far he can go in life with such humble beginnings. Lily had tried to make excuses, to bridge the gap between the two worlds she loved. He's good-hearted, Mum. He's passionate. He cares about his students more than anything else, she had said one night, after her parents made yet another thinly veiled comment about Adam's financial background. Her mother, however, had only sighed and said, "But darling, love doesn't pay the bills. And a career in education, well, it's simply not enough to provide the kind of life we want for you." Despite the subtle digs, Lily had kept her hope alive. She believed that if she gave in to her parents on a few things, like the venue for the wedding, the guest list, the extravagant dress, they might eventually see that she wasn't making a mistake. They would come around. But with every concession she made, the chasm between them grew. The final blow had come when Lily told them she was engaged. When she called her parents with the news, her mother's voice had been devoid of any excitement. "That's wonderful, dear," she had said, her tone stiff. There had been a long pause. "We should all sit down soon to discuss the wedding plans." That was when the battle truly began. Lily had tried to keep the peace. She had agreed to let her parents handle the wedding details, though she had pushed back on a few choices. She had picked her dress, insisted on having comfort food stations at the reception, and made sure to include a few personal touches to reflect her relationship with Adam. But when her parents insisted on hosting the wedding at the Rosewood Estate, a venue that cost a small fortune, and wanted to invite 300 guests, many of whom Lily didn't even know, her heart sank. The wedding, which should have been a celebration of her love for Adam, was becoming another instrument in her parents' social agenda. Adam, ever the peacemaker, had suggested a compromise, but deep down Lily knew it wasn't enough. It wasn't about the wedding. It was about the fact that her parents would never accept Adam for who he was. They would never approve of their love, and she had known that all along. Now, holding the letter that said weddings off, Lily couldn't help but feel the weight of her parents' betrayal. The quiet rage that had simmered inside her for so long finally bubbled to the surface. She wasn't their perfect daughter. She wasn't their perfect choice. And as much as she longed for their approval, she realized she couldn't continue to live her life according to their rules. Adam had never asked her to choose between him and her family, but deep down, Lily knew this wasn't just about Adam anymore. This was about her and the life she wanted to live, no matter what her parents thought. Lily sat in the luxurious dining room, her fingers nervously tapping on the polished wood of the table. Her parents' house was silent, a stark contrast to the chaos raging in her mind. She had agreed to meet them today, after days of avoiding their calls, hoping that a calm discussion might clear the air, but deep down she knew the truth. There was no middle ground here. Her parents had made it clear that they would never accept Adam, and in their eyes she was making the biggest mistake of her life. Victor and Diane Thompson had spent years building an image of perfection, an image that had always included Lily as their centerpiece. Everything they did, every decision they made, was for the sake of their legacy, their reputation. But now Lily felt like a puppet, torn between the life she had been forced to live and the love she had found with Adam, a love that had never fit into her family's plans. Her parents were seated across from her, their faces a mix of frustration and concern. "Lily," her father began, his voice heavy with authority, "we're not asking you to abandon your relationship with Adam. We're asking you to consider what's at stake here, your future, your security. Can you really say that you'll be happy with a man who can barely make ends meet? A man who has no connections, no future in the circles we run in?" Lily's heart sank as she listened to her father's words, but she held her ground. She had heard this rhetoric countless times before. "It's not about the money, Dad. Adam has a passion for what he does. He makes a difference in the lives of his students, and that's more than I can say about some of the people you associate with." She could feel her pulse racing, her anger rising with every word they spoke. Her mother's voice cut through the tension. "You think we're being unreasonable?" Diane's words were calm, but her eyes were sharp. "You're being selfish, Lily. You're throwing away everything we've worked for, everything we've given you, for someone who isn't even remotely capable of giving you the life you deserve." Lily could feel the weight of her mother's gaze, the judgment in her words. She had been trying for years to please them, to be the perfect daughter they had always wanted, but every step she took in their direction felt more like a betrayal of herself. She loved Adam. He wasn't perfect, but neither was she. And for once, she didn't want to be the person they had moulded her into. She wanted to be herself. "I'm not asking for your approval anymore," Lily said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. "I've made my choice, and it's not about money or status, it's about love. You'll never understand that, but I'm not going to apologize for it." Victor's face reddened, his jaw tightening. "This is ridiculous," he muttered under his breath. "You've gone too far, Lily. Do you really think Adam will be there for you when things get tough? When life doesn't go the way you've dreamed it will?" Lily stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She couldn't sit here and let them tear her apart anymore. "I don't need a lecture from you," she said, her voice breaking. "I've spent my whole life trying to live up to your expectations, but I can't anymore. I can't pretend to be someone I'm not." Her parents exchanged a look, the kind of look that spoke volumes. They were silent for a moment, and then Diane spoke again, this time with an almost resigned tone. "You're making a huge mistake, Lily. But if you think Adam is worth throwing everything away, then so be it. Just remember that you're doing this on your own." The words stung, but they didn't break her. She had expected them to try and manipulate her, to make her feel guilty for choosing her own happiness over their vision for her life. But she was done. The choice had already been made. As Lily walked out of the house, she was consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. Her mind raced with the harsh words of her parents, the disappointment in their eyes, and the feeling of being torn between two worlds. But she couldn't go back. Not now, not after everything she had gone through to get to this point. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking her out of her thoughts. It was a text from Amber, her oldest friend. "Are you okay? Call me when you get a chance." Lily smiled faintly, grateful for the support of someone who didn't judge her decisions. As she unlocked her car, she hesitated for a moment before replying, "I'll be fine. Just a little shaken. I need some time to think." But before she could put her phone down, another text came through. This one was from her old family friend, Brad. He had always been close to her family, someone who had known Lily since childhood. He was like a second brother to her, or so she had thought. "Lily, we need to talk. Your parents are really worried about you. You're making a huge mistake with Adam. I just want what's best for you. Please consider everything before it's too late." Lily froze. She had never expected Brad to be the one to reach out. She had always trusted him, but now something felt off. Was this really just concern, or was this another ploy from her parents to make her doubt herself? A part of her wanted to ignore his message, but another part felt the weight of his words. As she sat in her car, her phone pressed against her ear, she realized the truth. Brad wasn't reaching out because he cared about her happiness. He was part of the same system that had controlled her life for so long. This wasn't concern, it was manipulation. "I don't need this right now," Lily muttered to herself, shaking her head. She deleted the message and turned the key in the ignition. She had made her choice, and she wasn't going to let anyone, not even Brad, convince her to turn back. Lily stood at the crossroads, both figuratively and literally. Her car was parked at the edge of the driveway, the familiar home looming behind her, but the path before her was unclear. The harsh words exchanged with her parents still echoed in her mind. They had never been kind when it came to Adam, but today felt different. This felt like an ultimatum. Adam, the love of her life, was everything they didn't want for her. Her parents had made that crystal clear during their tense meeting. But what they hadn't said was how deeply their rejection had wounded her. They hadn't said how they would try to make her feel guilty for her choices, or how they would continue to manipulate her into choosing the life they had planned for her. For days after the meeting, Lily couldn't shake the image of her father's disappointed face and her mother's cold indifference. No matter how many times she replayed their words in her head, the sting never lessened. They didn't approve of Adam, and they were determined to make her feel as if her love for him was a betrayal of everything they had worked for. As Lily drove toward Adam's apartment that night, her phone buzzed with another text. It was from Brad, the family friend who had always been close to her parents. The message was brief. "Please call me. I know you're upset, but I'm just looking out for you." Lily's gut twisted. She had always trusted Brad, but she also knew he was too close to her parents. He was a fixture at their gatherings, a familiar face at every event. The fact that he was suddenly reaching out to her felt like yet another attempt to pull her back into the fold, to pressure her into making the right choice. She hit the ignore button on her phone, but as soon as she arrived at Adam's place, the guilt started to creep in. What if Brad was right? What if she was making a mistake? Adam was waiting for her in the small, cosy apartment they had spent many nights together in, but tonight the warmth of his presence didn't ease her uncertainty. As she sat down across from him, her heart raced. She wanted to explain everything, the arguments with her parents, the pressure she was under, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she just stared at him, the weight of the world in her eyes. "Lily," Adam's voice broke the silence, "I can tell something's on your mind. You've been distant all night. What's going on?" Lily looked at him, his deep green eyes searching hers for answers. She wanted to pour out everything, but the fear of losing him to the pressure from her family held her back. "It's my parents, Adam," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "They don't understand us. They're pushing me to break up with you. They don't think we belong together." Adam's face softened, but he didn't show the anger or frustration she expected. Instead, he sighed and leaned back. "Lily, I don't want you to choose between me and your family, but I also don't want you to lose yourself trying to meet their expectations. They've done this to you for years, haven't they?" She nodded, feeling the weight of his words. It had been a constant battle, trying to live up to their expectations. And for a long time she had tried, sacrificing parts of herself just to fit their mould. But now the sacrifice felt too great. "I've been thinking," Lily continued, "maybe they're right. Maybe we're just too different. Maybe I should just give up on us and go back to the life they've planned for me." Adam's expression didn't change, but his voice hardened slightly. "Lily, I'm not the one trying to tear us apart. You are. The truth is, if you go back to them, you'll lose yourself, and I don't want that for you. You don't deserve to be controlled by them." She felt her chest tighten. She knew he was right. Every time her parents tried to shape her life, they chipped away at her sense of who she really was. But this time, she wasn't sure she could fight back. Adam was the one person who understood her, but now, in the face of her family's rejection, even that felt uncertain. As she sat there, struggling with her emotions, her phone buzzed again. It was another message from Brad. This time she opened it. "Lily, I know you're upset, but you have to think about the long term. Adam isn't the right choice. You've got so much more to lose than you realise." Lily's stomach churned. This wasn't about concern for her happiness. It was about keeping her in line. Brad wasn't just worried for her. He was parroting her parents' concerns, trying to get her to reconsider the path she had chosen. It was the same tactic they always used: guilt, fear, and pressure. She put her phone down and turned to Adam. "I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I can keep disappointing them and losing their approval." Adam stood up and took her hand, pulling her toward him. "You're not disappointing anyone but yourself if you let them dictate your life. I'm here, Lily. I'm not going anywhere. But you need to decide if you want to keep living under their thumb or if you're ready to live for you." The words hit her hard. She had spent so many years trying to please everyone else, but where had it gotten her? Nowhere. Her parents' vision of her life was suffocating her, and in their attempt to control everything, they had pushed her away. And yet the fear of losing them, of being completely alone, still clung to her. For a moment she considered Brad's words, the ones that still echoed in her mind, but in the end she knew he was just another tool her parents had used to break her down. This wasn't about what was best for her, it was about what was easiest for them. "I can't go back, Adam," Lily whispered, finally finding her voice. "I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us." Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It wasn't just the tension between her and her parents, or the ever-present fear that she would lose everything she had worked for. It was a gnawing suspicion that had grown steadily since her last conversation with them. The subtle hints, the coldness, the way they looked at her when she told them about Adam, something wasn't adding up. She sat on the couch, staring at the photographs in her hands. These weren't just any photos, these were images of Adam, taken without his knowledge. A few of them were blurry, but others were clear enough to make out the street he had been walking down, a smile on his face as he passed a local cafe. But the most disturbing one was of him entering a building she didn't recognize. Her stomach dropped as she flipped through the pile, each one revealing more about his movements, his daily life, the places he frequented. All of it was being tracked, catalogued, like a criminal under investigation. But what really shook her to the core wasn't just the surveillance of Adam. It was the realization that her parents had crossed a line that could never be undone. This wasn't just about rejecting him. This was about trying to control her life in the most insidious way possible. Lily's hands trembled as she dialed Adam's number, her mind racing. She couldn't wait any longer. She needed to confront him about what she had found. As the phone rang, the silence of her apartment seemed to weigh down on her. "Hello?" Adam's voice answered, groggy as if he had been asleep. "Adam, we need to talk," Lily said, her voice shaking with barely contained emotion. I found something. Something that I don't know how to process." She paused, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "It's about the photos, the ones that were taken of you, and of me." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "What are you talking about?" Adam finally asked, his voice cautious. "My parents, they've hired a private investigator. They've been spying on us," she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "They have photos of you, pictures of you walking around town, going into places I don't recognize. And I think they've been following me too." Adam's silence stretched on, and Lily could hear his breath, shallow and tense. "You're saying your parents hired someone to follow us?" Lily nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "Yes, they're trying to make us seem dangerous, like we're doing something wrong." Adam's voice grew colder. "Why would they do that? I don't understand, Lily. This isn't just about us anymore, is it? This is about your parents trying to control you, to keep you from choosing me." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She couldn't. Not now. "They don't trust you. They never have. And they've never trusted me either. I thought if I just kept going along with their plans, they would eventually accept us. But this is a betrayal. They've gone too far." A heavy silence fell between them. Adam's voice was quiet when he spoke again. "Lily, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep choosing them over us. They've made it clear that they'll never accept me, and they're willing to go to any lengths to break us up. But I'm not going anywhere." The words stung, but they also gave her strength. Adam was right. Her parents had made it clear that they were willing to tear her apart just to get what they wanted, and she had been so afraid of losing them that she hadn't realized how much of herself she had been sacrificing in the process. "I don't know what to do anymore," Lily whispered, her voice breaking. "I thought maybe I could make them understand, but now it feels like they've already made up their minds. It's like I'm already lost to them." "Lily, listen to me," Adam said firmly. "You're not lost. You're right here with me, and I'm not going to let you go, but you have to decide. Do you want to keep living for them, or do you want to choose yourself, choose us?" Lily swallowed hard, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. She had always been the good daughter, the one who followed the rules. But what had it gotten her? Nothing but heartbreak, and a life dictated by others. She had to make a choice. "I can't keep doing this, Adam," she said softly. "I can't keep living in their shadow. I don't know how, but I'm going to find a way to make it right. For us." As she ended the call, Lily felt a rush of emotions flood through her. She was scared, terrified even, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope. This was the turning point. She didn't know how things would end, but she knew one thing: she couldn't go back. She couldn't let her family's control define her any longer. But just as she tried to calm herself, another thought hit her. If her parents had hired a private investigator to spy on her, to ruin her relationship with Adam, what else had they done? What other secrets were they keeping from her? Lily grabbed her phone again, her mind racing. She couldn't ignore the feeling that something else was going on. They hadn't just tried to break her and Adam apart. They were trying to isolate her completely, to cut her off from everything she loved. She opened the messages from Brad. Her fingers hovered over the screen. This wasn't just concern from a friend. This was a message planted by her parents. They had sent Brad to reinforce their control, to keep her in line. It wasn't about her happiness. It was about their agenda. And now she was done. Done being manipulated. Done being a pawn in their game. The silence in Lily's apartment was deafening. She sat on the couch, her hands trembling as she reread the texts and photographs her parents had orchestrated to separate her from Adam. It was as if her world had turned upside down in a matter of days. Her parents had hired a private investigator to spy on them, to break them apart, and now she had evidence of it. But the deeper wound wasn't just the betrayal of Adam, it was the realization that her parents had been treating her like a pawn in a game she had no interest in playing. Lily had always known her family to be controlling, but she hadn't fully grasped the extent of their reach until now. The photos, blurry images of Adam walking down the street, his face turned slightly, as if someone had snapped the shot from a distance, were one thing. But the more detailed information about Adam's life, his movements, and the places he went made Lily sick to her stomach. It was a violation of their privacy, a violation of everything she believed about trust. But it wasn't just Adam who had been under surveillance. As she pieced everything together, Lily realized with horror that she too had been watched. There were pictures of her leaving Adam's apartment, going to work, even walking in the park. The thought that her every move had been tracked by her own family was enough to make her feel like a stranger in her own life. Lily stood up suddenly, her heart racing, the weight of the truth pressed down on her chest, suffocating her. She felt trapped, betrayed, and alone. This was more than just a disagreement over Adam. It was about control. Her parents didn't care about her happiness. They cared about their image, their reputation. To them, she was just another piece of their perfect life, and the idea that she had chosen a man outside their circle was a threat they were unwilling to tolerate. Her phone buzzed, and for a moment, Lily hoped it was Adam, asking her to come over, to talk, to comfort her. But when she looked at the screen, it wasn't Adam's name, it was her mother's. The message was simple, yet its coldness sent a shiver down her spine. "We need to talk. Come by when you're ready." Lily stared at the message for a long moment, trying to steady her breath. She knew what this was. Her parents wanted to have another conversation, another round of manipulation disguised as concern. They wanted her to feel guilty, to feel as if she was making a mistake, just like they had done so many times before. But this time she wasn't going to back down. She took a deep breath and typed a response. "I'll come by." As she drove to her parents' house, a wave of nausea washed over her. Her hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as she thought about everything she had discovered. She couldn't believe they would go to such lengths to control her life. The house loomed ahead as she turned onto the familiar street, and for the first time in her life, Lily didn't feel a sense of belonging. It was a place that had once been her home, but now it felt foreign, cold, like a place where she had never truly been accepted for who she was. She rang the doorbell and waited, her heart pounding in her chest. Her mother answered the door, a polite smile on her face, but Lily could see the tension in her eyes. "Lily," Diane said, stepping aside to let her in. "I'm glad you've come." Lily didn't answer. She couldn't. All the words she had rehearsed in her head seemed to vanish as she stepped inside. The familiar scent of jasmine and freshly cut flowers filled the air, but it didn't comfort her like it used to. Instead, it made her feel sick to her stomach. They sat down in the formal living room, and Lily's father, Victor, joined them shortly after, his usual stern expression softening only slightly as he noticed Lily's tense posture. "I know you're upset, Lily," Diane began, her tone calm, almost rehearsed. "But we're just looking out for you. We've only done what any parent would do, try to protect you." Lily's voice caught in her throat, but she swallowed hard and forced the words out. "Protect me?" she repeated, her voice laced with disbelief. "By spying on me? By hiring someone to follow me and Adam? Is that how you protect me?" Victor shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "It's not like that," he said, his voice measured. "We just want to make sure you're not making a mistake." "Adam is not good enough for me?" Lily interrupted, her voice rising in frustration. "Is that it? You can't just control me like this. Tell me who I can and can't love. I'm an adult and I'm choosing Adam. You can't force me to change my mind. You've been controlling me my whole life, and I'm done with it." Her mother's face hardened, the smile fading from her lips. "Lily, you're being unreasonable. You can't just throw everything away for a man who has no future. He's not the kind of person you should be with. He doesn't have what it takes to give you the life you deserve." Lily felt the anger boil inside her, but she forced herself to stay calm. "What I deserve is to be happy, and for once I'm choosing myself. You can't keep manipulating me into living your dream for me. I won't let you." There was a long pause, the tension hanging thick in the air. Lily stared at her parents, waiting for some sort of apology, some kind of admission that they were wrong, that they had gone too far. But none came. Instead, her father stood up, his voice quiet but final. "You're making a mistake, Lily. But if this is the path you want to take, we won't stop you. Just know that you're on your own now." The words cut through her like a knife. She had expected rejection, but hearing it from both of them, hearing them wash their hands of her so easily, it was like a slap in the face. Lily stood up, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. "I've always been on my own," she said, her voice steady but breaking inside. "You just never saw it." She turned and walked out of the house, the sound of the door closing behind her ringing in her ears. It was over. There was no going back. Lily was still trying to process the harsh words from her parents as she sat in her small, dimly lit living room. The phone in her hand felt heavier than ever, and the weight of her parents' rejection continued to press down on her chest. She had expected their disapproval, but nothing could have prepared her for the coldness with which they had dismissed her. Walking out of their house, knowing that they had completely severed ties with her, had left a deep void inside. She thought back to the conversations she had once had with her grandmother, Betty Parker, and how the older woman had always seemed like the last bastion of understanding in her life. Betty had always been there when Lily needed her most, even if their relationship was somewhat distant due to the differences in their lives. Betty was a woman of power, influence, and wealth, yet there was always a certain warmth in her eyes when she spoke to Lily. Despite everything, Lily knew her grandmother was different. She wasn't just a figurehead in their family, she was someone who had lived her life on her own terms, making decisions that defied her family's expectations. That afternoon, just as Lily was lost in thought, the doorbell rang, pulling her out of her reverie. She wasn't expecting anyone, but when she opened the door, she was surprised to find her grandmother standing there, looking as elegant as ever, in a tailored suit and her signature silver necklace. "Grandma?" Lily blinked, stunned by her unexpected visit. "What are you doing here?" Betty smiled gently, stepping into the apartment with a grace that only someone like her could possess. "I came to see you, darling. We need to talk." Lily's heart raced. She hadn't seen her grandmother in months. not since her engagement party, when Betty had been a quiet observer to the tension between Lily and her parents. She hadn't expected Betty to show up unannounced, especially not now, when everything in Lily's life felt like it was falling apart. I didn't know you even knew what was going on, Lily said, still trying to grasp the reality of the situation. How did you find out? Betty's gaze softened, and she gestured for Lily to sit down on the couch. Oh, sweetheart, I've known about your situation for some time now. You think your parents are the only ones keeping an eye on things? I've been watching too. They've kept me in the loop, of course, but I've also kept tabs on you. Lily's stomach twisted at the thought of her grandmother knowing everything that had been happening. For a moment she felt exposed, as if all the raw emotions she had been keeping inside were laid bare. You're not the first one in this family to go through something like this, Lily, Betty continued, her voice calm but laced with a sadness Lily had never noticed before. I was once in your shoes, though I was much younger. I too fell in love with a man my family didn't approve of. He wasn't wealthy, he didn't have the right connections, and his background was far from what was expected. But I loved him. And just like you, my family made it clear that they didn't care for him, that he wasn't good enough. Lily stared at her grandmother, surprised by the admission. She had always viewed Betty as someone who had it all together, someone who had never struggled with the expectations that weighed so heavily on Lily's own shoulders. What did you do? Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Betty smiled wistfully, her gaze far away. I did what I had to do. I chose love over duty and I married him, but not without consequences. My family never forgave me and they certainly didn't welcome him into their world. I lost their approval, but I gained something far more important, the ability to live my life on my terms. Lily felt a spark of hope ignite within her. Perhaps her grandmother truly understood what she was going through. But before she could speak, Betty's expression shifted, and a steely resolve replaced her warm smile. Your parents have crossed a line, Lily. They've used every tool at their disposal to try and control you, to control your choices, Betty said, her voice firm. I know because I've been there, and I've seen the way they operate. They may have helped build this family's wealth, but they don't own you, and they certainly don't have the right to dictate your happiness. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She had always respected her grandmother, but hearing her speak so boldly about the very family Lily had been struggling to please was a revelation. Betty wasn't just an observer. She was someone who had fought her own battles, someone who had refused to bend to the will of the family. I don't know if I can do this, Grandma, Lily admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. They've already made it clear that if I stay with Adam, I'm alone. I can't have them hating me forever. Betty reached out and took her hand, her grip surprisingly strong. You don't have to do it alone. I'm here for you. I know how hard this is, but you have to stop worrying about what they think. You have to do what's right for you. Lily looked into her grandmother's eyes and saw something she hadn't expected. Understanding. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of relief. Betty wasn't just offering words of comfort, she was offering her full support. I'll help you, Lily, Betty said, her voice resolute. I've made some calls and I've taken the necessary steps to make sure you're protected, both legally and financially. You don't have to live in their shadow anymore. You have the right to choose your own future, and I'm going to help you get it. Lily's breath caught in her throat. Her grandmother was offering her a way out, a chance to break free from the grip of her parents' influence. But what about them? She asked, her voice shaky. What if they never forgive me? They will, or they won't, Betty replied with a shrug. But that's their choice, not yours. You can't let their disapproval define who you are. You have to live for yourself, not for them. Lily nodded, the weight in her chest lifting just a little. She didn't know where this road would lead, but for the first time, she felt like she was finally taking control of her own life. I'm ready, Grandma, she said softly. I'm ready to fight for us. Betty smiled, a proud gleam in her eye. That's my girl. The days following her grandmother's visit were a whirlwind of emotions for Lily. Betty's support had been a lifeline, a glimmer of hope in a situation that had felt increasingly hopeless. For the first time, Lily felt like she had someone truly on her side, someone who had faced similar battles and who understood the weight of her decision. Her grandmother's words resonated deeply with her, and as much as she feared the consequences, she knew it was time to stop hiding from her own life. Betty wasted no time in helping Lily navigate the treacherous waters that lay ahead. The very next day, Betty arranged for a meeting with her lawyer, Marcus Goldstein, a family friend who had worked with Betty for years on various legal matters. Lily had never met him before, but when they arrived at his office, the feeling of being in a safe space was immediate. Marcus was a sharp, meticulous man with an air of authority that put Lily at ease. As they sat across from him, Lily couldn't help but feel a sense of relief that someone who wasn't tied to her parents' expectations was on her side. "We'll need to look at your financial situation, Lily," Marcus said, his tone businesslike yet kind. "Your grandmother mentioned that there might be some concerns with your family's assets and the trust your parents have set up for you." Lily's stomach clenched. The idea of her parents using financial leverage against her was something she had always feared, but never fully acknowledged until now. She had always known about the trust fund, but the conditions attached to it had been a blur of legal jargon. Now it seemed like the time to confront those realities head on. "I've never been told about any restrictions," Lily said, trying to steady her voice, "but I'm starting to understand that everything has strings attached. My parents have used money to control me for as long as I can remember." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "It's a common tactic for families in your position," he said, his eyes sympathetic. "But the good news is, we can protect your interests. We'll make sure you have full access to the funds and that nothing they've tried to put in place can hold you back. The trust should work for you, not the other way around." Lily felt a sense of clarity as Marcus explained the details of the trust. She had always thought her parents had complete control over her life, that they had power over her decisions in a way that left her powerless. But now, with Marcus's help, it was becoming clear that she didn't have to continue playing by their rules. The meeting with Marcus had been eye-opening. It was the first step in taking back control of her life, and Lily felt empowered by the knowledge that her grandmother had set this in motion. Betty had always been a force to be reckoned with, but now Lily understood that her grandmother had played a much larger role in the family's financial dealings than she had ever realized. Over the next few days, Betty worked with Lily to gather the necessary documents, drafting legal papers that would secure Lily's rights to her inheritance, as well as protecting her from any further interference from her parents. The legal strategies were solid, and Lily felt a growing sense of confidence. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what her parents might do. She had a plan, and she had support. But as much as Lily appreciated Betty's help, she couldn't shake the feeling of guilt that lingered in her chest. She knew that challenging her parents in this way would drive a wedge between them, and she didn't know if she could ever rebuild the trust they had once shared. But her grandmother's words continued to echo in her mind. "You have the right to choose your own future." Lily couldn't ignore that anymore. One afternoon, as Lily sat with Betty in her apartment, the older woman turned to her with a smile that was equal parts warm and resolute. "You're doing the right thing, Lily," Betty said, her eyes steady. "I know this is hard, but you're choosing your own path now. You're no longer under their control, and once you take this step, there's no turning back." Lily nodded, feeling the weight of the decision settle on her shoulders. She had been living in her parents' shadow for so long, trying to please them, trying to fulfill their vision for her life. But now, for the first time, she was choosing to live for herself. She was choosing Adam. She was choosing love. And most importantly, she was choosing freedom. "You're not alone in this," Betty continued, her voice gentle but firm. "I'll be with you every step of the way. But understand this, Lily, your parents may never understand. And that's okay. What matters now is that you understand. You're not just fighting for your relationship with Adam. You're fighting for yourself. You've spent too long letting them dictate your choices. Now it's time to take control. Lily's heart swelled with gratitude. Betty had never been one to offer false comfort, but in that moment she felt more supported than she ever had. For the first time, she wasn't alone in her fight. Over the next few weeks, Lily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She moved forward with the legal process, with Betty's support guiding her every step of the way. The tension between Lily and her parents continued to grow, but it no longer felt like a battle she couldn't win. She had the tools she needed to protect herself, and she knew that no matter what her parents said or did, she had her grandmother and Adam by her side. As much as Lily longed for her parents' approval, she realized that it would never come at the cost of her own happiness. She had spent so many years trying to fit into their mold, trying to please them at the expense of her own desires. But now she had found a way out. She had found the courage to stand up for herself. And with that realization, Lily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like her own. The next few days were filled with a mixture of determination and dread. Lily had made the decision to fight for her freedom, but the weight of that decision was heavy on her shoulders. She had reached out to Marcus Goldstein, the lawyer her grandmother had recommended, to begin the process of legally severing herself from her parents' influence. The thought of confronting them in court, of battling them over money and control, felt like a war she wasn't prepared to fight. But she had no choice. Lily had spent her life trying to meet her parents' expectations, giving up pieces of herself along the way. And now, standing at the crossroads, she had realized that in order to move forward with Adam, she had to first stand up to the people who had shaped her life for so long. It wasn't just about Adam anymore. It was about reclaiming her own voice, her own identity. Sitting in Marcus's office, she felt a mix of fear and resolve. The legal documents in front of her felt like a lifeline, but they also felt like a threat. She was no longer just a daughter in her parents' eyes. She was an enemy. The fight she was about to wage was no longer just about her relationship with Adam. It was about redefining her entire life. "You're on the right path," Marcus had told her, his calm demeanour offering some comfort in the midst of her turmoil. "We'll start by ensuring your access to the trust fund and securing your assets. But I need to ask, are you ready for the consequences of what this might mean? Your parents won't let this go easily." Lily nodded, even though her stomach churned at the thought. "I've made my choice. I know the consequences, but I can't go back. Not anymore." Marcus gave her a reassuring smile before pulling out the necessary paperwork. "We'll move forward then. I'll have these documents drafted and ready for you to sign. We'll also need to prepare for the possibility of a legal battle." Lily left Marcus's office feeling a sense of relief, but it was short-lived. The weight of her decision settled in like a storm cloud. She wasn't just fighting her parents now. She was fighting the life she had known, the security that had always been a given. Her entire foundation was crumbling, and she didn't know how to rebuild it. That night, as she sat alone in her apartment, the phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but the caller ID made her pause. It was Brad, the family friend. She had avoided his messages, ignored his calls, but now his name on her screen made her wonder if she could afford to shut him out any longer. She hesitated before answering, her heart pounding. "Hello?" "Lily," Brad's voice came through, sounding concerned but also cautious. "I know this is difficult, but I want you to understand something. I'm on your side, you know that, right?" Lily was silent for a moment, weighing his words. Brad had always been like a brother to her, someone she trusted. But now, knowing he was so closely tied to her parents, she wasn't sure what to think. "Are you?" she asked, her voice laced with suspicion. "Because it doesn't feel that way." "I know things have been tense between us," Brad continued, "but I've seen what your parents are doing and I don't agree with it. They're trying to force you into a life that isn't yours, and I can't stand by and watch it happen." Lily felt a glimmer of hope at his words, but she wasn't ready to let her guard down just yet. Then why didn't you say anything sooner? Why didn't you warn me? Brad sighed on the other end of the line. It's complicated, Lily. Your parents, they've been making decisions for you since you were born. And while I agree with you, I didn't want to make things worse, but I'm done standing on the sidelines. I'm here to help. I've been talking to some people who might be able to assist you legally, and if you want, I can help you navigate the next steps. Lily's mind raced. Brad's sudden change of heart was a twist she hadn't expected, but she knew she had to be cautious. And what's the catch, Brad? What's your angle in all of this? He didn't answer right away, and Lily could hear him take a deep breath. Lily, I've been close to your family for years, and I've seen how they operate. They've done things behind your back, things I don't agree with. But I can't be open about all of it right now. Just know this, I want to help you, and I'm not doing this for any other reason than because I care about you. Lily felt a chill run through her. Was this truly the friend she had known for so long, or was there something more to Brad's involvement? Despite her doubts, she knew she couldn't turn down the offer. She had nothing left to lose. Okay, Lily said, her voice trembling slightly. I'll listen, but I need to know I can trust you. I'll do everything I can to help you, Brad replied, his tone more earnest than before. Just take the first step, Lily. Let's start working on a plan to protect yourself. You don't have to do this alone. Before she could respond, the call ended abruptly. Lily sat back in her chair, her head spinning. She had just made another choice, one that might change everything. But as much as she appreciated Brad's offer of help, something still didn't sit right with her. Why had he waited until now to step in? And why was he so determined to help her fight her family? Later that evening, as Lily tried to process everything, her phone rang again. This time the call was from her mother. It was the last person she expected to hear from, and she hesitated before answering. Lily, Diane's voice was calm, almost too calm. I think we need to talk. I understand you're upset, but I want to have a conversation, just the two of us. No lawyers, no outside influences. Lily's heart pounded. She had anticipated this moment, the final attempt at persuasion. But now, with everything she had learned, she wasn't sure she could trust her mother anymore. I don't want to talk, Mom, Lily said firmly. Not unless it's about me, my life, and the choices I'm making. I've made my decision. I don't need you to approve of it. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Diane's voice was tight when she finally spoke. We'll see about that, Lily. You think you're making the right choice, but you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. You'll regret this. Just remember, you're always welcome back. Lily's breath caught in her throat as she hung up the phone. She had made her choice, and it was a choice that would lead her down a path that was hers to walk, and hers alone. Lily sat at her kitchen table, her hands resting on the papers scattered before her. The documents were official, the first steps in her legal battle. She had never imagined she'd be sitting here, signing her life away, fighting against the very people who had raised her. But it was the only way forward. As much as she feared the consequences, as much as the loneliness gnawed at her, she knew that her fight for freedom was something she couldn't walk away from. She had spoken to Marcus Goldstein multiple times since their first meeting, and each conversation had left her with more clarity, but also more anxiety. The process wasn't going to be easy. Her family's wealth and influence reached far and wide, and she was up against forces that were determined to keep her in line. It wasn't just about money, it was about power. Her parents had used every tool at their disposal to control her, and now, with her newfound resolve, they were going to fight to maintain that control. Lily sighed, running her fingers through her hair. She didn't feel victorious yet. She felt afraid, isolated, and unsure. She had made the decision to stand up for herself, to make a life with Adam, but in doing so she had alienated herself from the only family she had ever known. The house she grew up in, the people who should have supported her, now felt like strangers. The void between them seemed too wide to ever cross. Her phone rang, breaking the silence in the room. She didn't have to look at the screen to know who it was. Her parents had been calling her for days, but she had refused to answer. This time, however, something made her pick up. "Lily," her mother's voice came through, calm and almost too measured. "We need to talk." Lily clenched her fists around the phone, her jaw tightening. She had no intention of getting caught in another round of manipulation, but there was something in her mother's voice that caught her off guard. There was no anger, no veiled threats, just a strange calmness that felt even more unsettling than the usual pressure. "I'm listening," Lily replied, her voice steady. "We've had some time to think, and your father and I believe it's time to have a more mature conversation," Diane continued. "We know you've made your choice, and we've accepted that. But you need to understand the consequences of your actions. This isn't just about you and Adam. This is about your future, Lily." Lily's heart hammered in her chest. She wanted to cut the conversation short, to hang up and move on with her life. But she had always been the one to listen. She had always allowed them to tell her what to do. This time, though, she wasn't sure if she could. "I'm not going to change my mind, Mom," Lily said, her voice low but firm. "I've made my decision. I love Adam, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm done trying to meet your expectations." Her mother was silent for a moment, and when she spoke again, her tone had shifted. It was softer, almost resigned. "We never wanted to control you, Lily. We only wanted what was best for you. But if this is the path you've chosen, we won't stand in your way. Just know that you're cutting yourself off from the life you've known. You'll never have the same access to what we've built if you go down this road, and you'll never have us." The finality in her mother's words stung more than Lily expected. She had already come to terms with the fact that her parents would never accept her choices, but hearing them say it so plainly, so coldly, made her realize the full weight of the decision she had made. It wasn't just a rejection of Adam, it was a rejection of everything she had known, everything that had shaped her identity. "I'm not asking for your approval anymore," Lily said, her voice trembling despite her best efforts. "I'm choosing my own path, and that path includes Adam. I've spent my whole life trying to be who you wanted me to be. I'm done with that." Her mother's voice cracked just slightly before she regained composure. "I know you think this is the right choice, but you're wrong, Lily. You'll realize it too late. I'm not asking you to give him up, but we need to come to some sort of understanding. You can't just turn your back on us." Lily felt her resolve waver, but only for a moment. She had fought too hard to get here, to let her parents twist her decision again. "I'm not turning my back on you," she said quietly, "but I can't live for you anymore. I need to live for me." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, the silence thick with unspoken words. Finally, her mother spoke again, but this time her voice was hollow, empty. "We'll see where this road takes you. Just remember, you can always come back. We'll always be here for you, even if you don't think we are." The words stung, but Lily didn't let them break her. She had made her choice, and it was one she couldn't walk back from. "Goodbye, Mum," she said, before hanging up. For a long time, Lily just stood there, holding the phone in her hand, staring at the screen. She couldn't believe how much she had lost. But in that moment, she also knew that she couldn't continue living a lie. Her parents' rejection was painful, but it was a price she was willing to pay for her freedom. The call with her mother left a bitter taste in her mouth, but it also marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The road ahead was uncertain, and Lily didn't know what it would bring. But for the first time in her life, she was no longer afraid to face it. She had Adam, she had her own sense of self, and now, with her grandmother's support, she had a plan to protect herself. She sat back down on the couch, a sense of finality settling in her chest. No matter what happened next, she had chosen her path. And that, she realized, was the most powerful decision she had ever made. The days leading up to their wedding felt surreal. Lily had never imagined that it would come to this. A small, intimate ceremony, just the two of them and a handful of close friends. The grand wedding she had once dreamed of, the one her parents had planned for her, was now a distant memory. The lavish venue, the endless guest list, the pressure to impress, it was all gone. Instead, she and Adam were choosing simplicity, choosing each other over all the noise and expectations of the world they had once belonged to. It wasn't the wedding Lily had envisioned growing up, but in many ways it was more than she had ever hoped for. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she didn't need the approval of her parents to feel complete. What mattered was the bond she shared with Adam, the love that had been so genuine, so real from the very beginning. It was the kind of love she had always yearned for, but had never been able to find within the confines of her family's world. This wedding, small and understated, felt like the truest expression of that love. The venue was a quiet garden by the lake, a place that Adam and Lily had visited during their first trip together, a moment she had cherished. The weather was perfect, the sun warm but not too hot, the gentle breeze swaying the trees around them. It was simple, but it felt like home. The vows they would exchange weren't scripted or rehearsed. They came from the heart, from the years of shared memories, from the understanding that they had fought for this moment together. Lily felt a sense of calm she hadn't known in years. The nerves that had once plagued her about pleasing her parents, about the weight of their expectations, seemed far away now. It was as though the moment she had decided to let go of their control, the moment she had chosen her own happiness, she had unlocked a freedom she never thought possible. In Adam's eyes, in the way he held her hand, Lily knew she had made the right decision. But just as the final preparations for the ceremony were underway, Lily received a letter. It was from her parents. Her heart skipped a beat as she read the words, her mother's elegant handwriting staring back at her. The letter was brief, but the message was unmistakable. Lily, we want you to know that we've thought long and hard about everything. We are sorry for how we've acted, and we would like to make amends. We miss you, and we hope you can find it in your heart to forgive us. We would like to discuss things and try to make things right. Please call us. Lily's fingers trembled as she held the letter. Part of her wanted to feel relief, wanted to believe that her parents were finally acknowledging the pain they had caused, but as she read the words again, something deep inside her told her that it wasn't enough. The years of pressure, the manipulation, the rejection, it couldn't just be undone with an apology on paper. She had already made her decision, and that decision was to move forward with or without their approval. She showed Adam the letter, and he could see the conflict in her eyes. You don't have to answer them, Lily. This is your day. They've had their chance. We've built something real, and that's all that matters. Lily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. She had always hoped for reconciliation, always dreamed that one day her parents would accept her choices. But now she realized that they couldn't have it both ways. They couldn't expect her to sacrifice her happiness and independence just to meet their standards, just to appease their egos. I'm not going back, Adam, she said softly, her voice steady. I appreciate their apology, I really do, but I've spent too many years trying to win their love and approval. I can't keep sacrificing who I am just for a relationship that was never unconditional. Adam nodded, squeezing her hand. You've come so far, Lily. This is your life, your choice, and I'm with you every step of the way. With a final breath, Lily tucked the letter away, deciding to leave the past where it belonged. It no longer had power over her. She had chosen Adam, chosen freedom, and nothing would take that away. The day of the wedding was everything they had imagined. It was simple but profound. Friends from both sides, some old, some new, gathered in the garden, sharing in the quiet beauty of the moment. There were no speeches from distant relatives, no formalities dictated by her parents' social circle. It was just them, just love. As Lily stood at the altar, looking into Adam's eyes, she felt a sense of peace she had never known before. The road to this moment had been fraught with challenges, with heartache, with loss. But standing there, in front of the people who truly mattered, she felt the weight of the world lift off her shoulders. I vow to love you, not just in the good moments, but in the tough ones too, Adam said, his voice strong but filled with tenderness. I promise to stand by you, to support you, to honour you, and to fight for you every day for the rest of my life." Lily's heart swelled as she looked into his eyes. "I vow to choose you every day, to love you with all that I am, to build a life together that is true to who we are, not what anyone else expects. I promise to be by your side, always." And as their vows were simple, but they were real, born from everything they had been through together. When they exchanged rings, it wasn't just a promise of marriage, it was a promise to always be true to themselves, no matter what. As the ceremony came to a close, and they shared their first kiss as husband and wife, Lily felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had fought for this moment, fought against the forces that had tried to control her, and now she had found peace. She had found love. Later, as they stood together, surrounded by friends who truly cared, Lily realized that this was the freedom she had been searching for. The love she had with Adam was the most real thing in her life, and for the first time she didn't need anyone else's approval to feel complete. The past was behind her, and the future was theirs to build together. The day of the wedding arrived, and Lily couldn't have been more at peace. It was everything she had hoped for and more. No extravagant decorations, no towering wedding cakes, no pressure to meet the expectations of a family that had never truly seen her for who she was. Instead, it was a celebration of love and freedom, a commitment made between two people who had fought for the right to be together. Lily and Adam stood on a small wooden platform in the garden of the lake house. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm, golden glow over everything. The ceremony was simple, but it felt like it was woven from the threads of their shared memories, their struggles, and their triumphs. The guest list was short, just a handful of friends who had supported them throughout their journey. There were no distant relatives, no family members who expected to be there for appearances. Just the people who mattered most, the ones who had seen them through the darkest times and the brightest. Lily's best friend, Amber, was her maid of honour, and Adam's childhood friend, James, stood beside him as the best man. The two of them were the kind of people who didn't need to say much. They were always there when it counted, and that was enough. Lily looked around, her heart swelling with gratitude. The flowers that adorned the space were simple wildflowers, hand-picked from a nearby field. The aisle was lined with candles, their soft flicker adding warmth to the evening. And Adam, standing across from her, his smile bright and genuine, his hand outstretched for her to take, was the man she had chosen. He was her partner, her equal, and the love of her life. As she walked down the aisle, there was no nervousness, no anxiety about what her parents might think. There was only peace. She had fought for this moment, and now she was standing in the light of it. This was her choice, her life, and she was walking toward it with her head held high. Adam's eyes met hers, and the smile on his face was all the reassurance she needed. They had made it. They had overcome the obstacles, the doubts, the pressures, and now here they were, ready to start their new life together. The officiant, a dear friend of Adam's family, spoke the words that would bind them together. It was a quiet ceremony, but it was full of meaning. "Do you, Adam Green, take Lily Thompson to be your lawfully wedded wife?" he asked, his voice steady. "I do," Adam said, his voice full of certainty and love. "And do you, Lily Thompson, take Adam Green to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Lily's heart beat faster as she looked into Adam's eyes. This was it. This was the moment she had dreamed of, the moment where everything fell into place. "I do," she whispered, her voice strong with emotion. The officiant smiled, and with a simple gesture, he pronounced them husband and wife. The small crowd cheered, and Lily felt as if the weight of the past had been lifted in that single moment. She leaned in to kiss Adam, the soft touch of his lips against hers, marking the beginning of their journey as a married couple. The celebration that followed was just as simple and heartfelt as the ceremony itself. There was no elaborate reception, no formal speeches. Instead, they shared a meal with their closest friends, laughed over shared memories, and danced under the stars. There was a sense of calm, of pure joy that enveloped them, and Lily realized that this was what happiness felt like. It wasn't about grand gestures or societal approval, it was about love, and it was about freedom. Throughout the night, Lily couldn't help but think about the road that had led her here. She had fought for this life, fought to break free from the chains that had held her back for so long. She had stood up to her parents, to the weight of their expectations, and in doing so she had found her own voice. And with that voice, she had chosen Adam. She had chosen a life of authenticity, a life of true happiness. As they danced, Adam's arms around her, Lily closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. The world outside the small circle of their friends no longer mattered. They were free. But just as she was settling into this newfound peace, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't want to check it, but a sense of obligation tugged at her. She pulled it out and saw the message. It was from her mother. "Lily, we know we've hurt you. We've been wrong. We want to talk. Please don't let this be the end. We love you." Lily stared at the message for a long time. It was exactly what she had wanted to hear all these months. But now it felt hollow. It didn't feel like the reconciliation she had imagined. It felt like another attempt to pull her back into their world, to make her feel guilty for the choices she had made. She put the phone back in her pocket and looked up at Adam, who was smiling at her. He didn't know about the message yet, but somehow she knew he could sense her hesitation. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Lily nodded, smiling through the storm of emotions swirling inside her. "Yeah, everything's perfect." For the first time in a long time, Lily felt complete. She had made her choice, and she didn't need her parents' approval to feel validated. She had Adam, and she had herself, and that was enough. As the night wore on, Lily realized that while the road ahead might be filled with challenges, she had something far more powerful than approval or money. She had the courage to live her truth, to love without fear, and to build a future with the person who made her feel like she could finally breathe. And for the first time, Lily felt like she was truly free. The weeks following the wedding were a time of reflection and adjustment for Lily. She and Adam had built a life for themselves, far away from the controlling expectations of her parents. Every day felt like a small victory, a reminder that they had chosen their own path, one that was true to who they were. But while Lily had found peace, a lingering question still gnawed at her. Could she ever truly move forward without the weight of her family's disapproval hanging over her? Her grandmother Betty had been a constant source of strength, reminding Lily that family would never define her happiness or her future. During one of their many quiet conversations in the months after the wedding, Betty had imparted wisdom that had resonated deeply with Lily. "Remember, darling," Betty had said one evening as they sipped tea on the porch, "family might never accept the choices you make. They might not understand, but you can't let that keep you from living your truth. You must live for yourself and only for yourself. Because at the end of the day, your happiness doesn't belong to anyone but you." Lily had nodded at the time, but the truth of those words hadn't fully sunk in until much later. She had been so caught up in trying to gain her parents' approval, so focused on what they thought of her, that she had forgotten the most important thing. The only approval she needed was her own. And now she had it. As Lily sat in her apartment one morning, going through some old letters and photographs, the phone rang. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw the name on the screen, her mother. For months, Lily had avoided talking to them, unwilling to relive the pain of their rejection. But now, with the lessons she had learned from Adam and her grandmother, she wasn't sure what to expect. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was stronger, more resolute than ever before. Taking a deep breath, she answered the call. "Hello, Lily." Diane's voice was softer than usual, devoid of the usual judgment or anger. "I know you've been avoiding us, and I don't blame you. But we've had some time to think, and I think it's time we talk. Lily's pulse quickened. She hadn't expected this kind of conversation. Her parents had always been so set in their ways, their pride standing between them and any real understanding. But the sincerity in her mother's voice surprised her. "I'm listening," Lily said, her voice steady but guarded. "We just wanted to say that we're sorry," Diane continued, the words sounding more genuine than Lily had ever expected. "We've been difficult, and I know we've hurt you. We've been selfish in our expectations. But we want you to know that we love you, and we want to make things right." Lily sat back, the weight of her mother's words sinking in. She had never imagined hearing her parents express regret for their actions, let alone asking for forgiveness. But she had come to realize that this wasn't about seeking validation from them. It was about understanding that they too were flawed. They had made mistakes, just like everyone else. And while that didn't change the fact that their behavior had hurt her, it gave her the clarity to understand that she couldn't live for their approval anymore. "I've made my peace with everything, Mom," Lily said quietly. "I've chosen my own life, my own path, and that's not something I can take back. But I do appreciate your apology. I really do." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, but when Diane spoke again, her voice was quieter, almost fragile. "I know, sweetheart. I understand. We may not always agree, but we want to be a part of your life. We want to be there for you, for whatever you need." Lily felt a twinge of emotion stir within her. It wasn't the reunion she had once hoped for, but it was a beginning. A step towards something different, something more honest. The past couldn't be undone, but it didn't have to control her future. "I'm happy with my life now, Mum," Lily said, her voice resolute. "And I'm happy with Adam. I've made my choice, and that choice is mine, not anyone else's." The conversation ended with a tentative promise to keep in touch, but Lily didn't feel the rush of relief she might have once expected. Instead, she felt something else, something she hadn't anticipated, a sense of closure. For the first time, she was no longer seeking their approval, and that freedom felt like a weight had been lifted. As the days passed, Lily and Adam continued to build their life together, focusing on the present and the future rather than the past. They didn't need her parents' approval anymore. What they had was enough. One afternoon, as Lily sat on the balcony of their apartment, Adam joined her with 2 cups of tea in hand. The view of the city below was calm, the bustling world feeling distant and unimportant. They had created their own little sanctuary here, free from the chaos of Lily's family's expectations. "You know," Adam said, handing her a cup, "I'm proud of you. I can see it in your eyes. You've come a long way." Lily smiled at him, the love they shared reflected in the quiet moment they shared. "I never thought it would be this easy to feel free," she admitted, her voice full of gratitude. "But now, I realize that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Adam kissed her forehead softly, his hand resting on hers. "And that's all that matters." They sat together, watching the world go by, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. They had chosen their own path, and that path was theirs to walk, unshackled by the past, unburdened by the weight of others' expectations. Lily had finally embraced the truth. Her happiness, her love, her life, it was all hers to create. And as she leaned into Adam, she realized that the future was brighter than she had ever imagined. A few months had passed since Lily and Adam's wedding, and their life together had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. They had started making their own traditions, small rituals that brought them joy, and built a life that felt truly their own. The love they shared was enough to fill the gaps left by her parents' absence, and with every passing day, Lily felt more at peace with the decisions she had made. She was finally free from the burden of living up to expectations that were never truly hers to begin with. It wasn't perfect, of course. There were still moments of doubt, moments when Lily wondered if she had made the right choice, especially when she thought about her parents. But those moments were fleeting, and Adam was always there to remind her of the strength she had found in herself. One evening, as they were having dinner at home, the phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but the area code was familiar. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw it was her mother's voice on the other end. "Lily," Diane's voice was softer than it had ever been. "I know it's been a while, and I know we've hurt you. But we want to talk. I think it's time we finally have an honest conversation, without the anger or the demands, just us as a family." Lily was taken aback. Her parents had never reached out like this before. After the wedding, she had expected their silence to be permanent, their disapproval a constant in her life. But now, hearing her mother's tone, something had shifted. The icy distance that had existed between them was starting to thaw, and Lily wasn't sure what to make of it. "Mom," Lily replied, her voice steady, though her mind was racing. "I don't know what to say. I've spent so long trying to make you happy, trying to get your approval, and now I don't know if I can just go back to how things were." Her mother's voice softened even more. "I understand, Lily. We've done things wrong and we know it, but we want you to know that we miss you. We've thought about everything, about the way we treated you, about how we tried to control you, and we're sorry." Lily closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. The apology wasn't what she had expected. For so long she had wanted this, yearned for it. She had wanted her parents to understand, to acknowledge the pain they had caused her. But now, in this moment, it didn't feel like the victory she had imagined. It felt hollow. "I don't know what to say, Mom," Lily said, her voice quiet but firm. "I've moved on. I've chosen my life with Adam, and I've chosen to live for myself. I'm not asking for your approval anymore, but that doesn't mean I'm not open to moving forward with you, just on different terms. But it can't be the same as it was before." There was silence on the other end of the line, and Lily could almost hear the weight of her mother's realization. When Diane spoke again, her voice was softer, filled with a mix of regret and acceptance. "I understand. We may not fully understand your choice, Lily, but we want to be part of your life. If you'll let us. We're here, and we're sorry." Lily nodded to herself, even though her mother couldn't see it. There was a sense of relief in the apology, but also a sadness. She had always longed for her parents' approval, but now, for the first time, she didn't need it. She had come to understand that true peace came from within, not from others' validation. "I appreciate the apology, Mum. I really do," Lily said, her voice steadier now. "But I can't go back. I've made my choices, and they've led me here, to Adam. I'm happy. I hope we can build something new from here, but I won't go back to living under your expectations." The conversation ended with a tentative promise to stay in touch. Lily felt a sense of closure that she hadn't expected. The call wasn't the grand reconciliation she had imagined, but it was enough. It was a step forward for both her and her parents. The wall they had built between them had started to crumble, but it wasn't enough to bring back the old dynamic. That part of her life was over. Lily hung up the phone and turned to Adam, who had been quietly watching her. "Well?" he asked, his eyes soft with concern. "I think they finally get it," Lily said, her voice calm but filled with the quiet strength she had gained over the past few months. "But I'm not going back. This is my life now, and I'm not going to let anyone control it." Adam smiled and walked over to her, pulling her into a hug. "I'm proud of you, Lily. You've come a long way." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Lily realized that this was the freedom she had been searching for all along. It wasn't the approval of her parents or anyone else that defined her worth. It was her ability to make choices that aligned with her values, her ability to choose love over fear, and to build a life that was her own. The journey had been difficult, filled with heartache and confusion. But now, with Adam by her side and her own strength guiding her forward, she felt ready for whatever came next. The future was wide open, and for the first time, she felt like she was truly free.